Just when we thought that the Eurocrats could no longer surprise us, they've gone and done it again. At the behest of the Council of the European Union, a special report is being compiled on the pros and cons of creating a green army. According to the document, these green armies could be responsible for 5.5% of global carbon dioxide emissions. The green madness of EU bureaucrats, as you can see, is crossing new boundaries. The question is whether the greening of the army is of concern to Putin, for example, who certainly enjoys any such idiotic ideas that could give him an advantage on the battlefield. As you can see, in the new wonderful world, the priority issue is to fight for the climate and not for the freedom and security of the homeland. According to the report's authors, possible plans to introduce an ecological army are for the indefinite future. United States intelligence warns that Russia is in the process of preparing its westward expansion, so no day must be lost, and an ecological transformation of the army could take many years. It would be necessary to build a completely different armament with completely different technologies. If everything were to be green, it is known that it would cost a lot, and simply that then this war will not be won. What is clear is that the green transformation of the army will slow down the development of the arms industry. Both Russia and China will choose not to take pro-climate steps, and this will result in a deadly military advantage over Europe. There are also those who claim that the least carbon dioxide is produced by the traditional military. At the same time, the European Commission unveiled its latest Fit for 90 climate plan. It envisages a 90% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions compared to 1990. Gazeta Polska, citing a report by the French Rousseau Institute, warns that Europeans, including Poles, will have to reduce the use of cars by 25%, the use of trucks by 20%, reduce meat eating, and radically reduce air travel. French Rousseau Institute report: 1/4 of cars, 1/5 of trucks, reduce meat eating, minimize airplane travel. Activities in the field of both transportation and houses or warming, or those ecological issues around private houses or apartments, are annual burdens at the level of 45,000 zloty per inhabitant. The topic of radical restrictions on transportation and food is nothing new. A year ago, the media talked about a report by the C40 Cities Association, which also announced radical climate steps. Warsaw, managed by Rafał Trzaskowski, is a member of the association. The mayor of the capital at Campus Poland of the Future praised the radical ideas of environmentalists. The only city in Poland that said 100% for 2050. I know it's not as ambitious as we would like it to be, but we are the only city in Poland that's preparing for this, step by step. Along with C40, the organisation with the highest ambitions in terms of the fight against global warming, we have a detailed plan about how to get there. If we are in power, we will get there faster. The European Union has been trying to fight global warming for several years now. Currently, the most glaring effect on this policy is the pan-European farmer protests. Paweł Blok, Republika Television. We move now to the Migration Pact. The pact was approved today by the European Parliament's Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs. Under the agreement, as many as 4.5 million migrants are to be distributed to EU countries annually, and failure to take them in will mean heavy penalties. The Migration Pact has been supported by all European groupings, which include the parties of Donald Tusk's coalition. What does this mean for Poland? Today, I'm checking, said Edyta Holdinska. 20,000 euros in fines per unadmitted migrant under a migration pact voted in the European Parliament Committee today. MEPs are sounding the alarm that we are facing a wave of migration. What does it threaten? Check today. The state is there to defend its borders, and our government is there to make sure this defence is worthy of a European state, that it's compliant with EU laws and done in a humane fashion. The new principles of EU migration policy are, first, ensuring the right to free legal advice and guaranteeing good conditions for waiting for an asylum application to be processed. Second, faster asylum process, applications assessed at the border. Third, the legislation commits to solidarity between countries in the event of a migration crisis. And it is the last point that is the most controversial. In exactly 2 years, millions of migrants will be distributed throughout many countries, including Poland. According to the pact, you'll be about to buy your way out at a cost of €20,000 per migrant. But should the Commission decide that there is a crisis situation, well, then you won't be able to buy your way out. Parties that voted in favour of this are PO, PSL, Hołownia and the left. So, refugees, welcome to Poland. How does it work? The Migration Pact provides for a system of compulsory solidarity. It relies on the fact that either countries take in migrants or they have to pay about €20,000 for each person. No member state will ever be obliged to carry out relocations, but a minimum annual number of relocations will be set from member states from which most people enter the European Union to member states less exposed to such arrivals. The Migration Pact is a very conservative compromise that's on the table. Today there is a consensus that the migration crisis is a fact. The approach to the document itself is radically different. Unfortunately, it was voted down by the votes of the coalition that came into government on the 13th of December. One should be fully aware of this. The European Union's Interior Commissioner, Ylva Johansson, expressed confidence that Poland would cooperate fully in implementing the new migration policy. The new government came in at a time when the pact had already been agreed upon, so it is difficult for it to take any clear position, according to the Commissioner. What's next? The Commission accepted the Migration Pact and simultaneously indicated that we must hurry towards ratification because, as the Commissioner says, 4.5 million migrants are to be accepted per year. The Commission will decide how many migrants are allocated to which country. When we see the housing shortages in countries like Germany, Austria, Holland, Italy, Spain, Greece, it's clear that they will get relief from the influx and that the Commission will be forcibly relocating migrants, predominantly to places like Poland. Why exactly to Poland? Each year, the Commission will have the right to determine a sum that it will then allocate. And next, according to a mathematical formula prepared back in 2015, will redistribute the migrants. Now, according to the variables in the formula, Poland will have a much greater allocation. The question is whether our assistance to Ukrainians in a truly crisis situation will really be taken into account. Editor Holdinska, Republic Television. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg warned Europe on Wednesday against trying to go it alone on defence after comments by Donald Trump prompted fresh debate over whether the continent may continue to rely on protection from the United States. Stoltenberg said in an interview that 80% of NATO's defence expenditure came from non-EU countries, so it was clear that Europe's security depended not just on the EU itself, but on other NATO members such as the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Turkey, Norway and Iceland. Trump, the former United States president and frontrunner to be the Republican nominee in this year's presidential election, sparked sharp criticism from Western leaders after saying that he had told NATO members the United States would not defend those who failed to spend enough on defence and would even encourage Russia to attack them. Many European politicians said Trump's comment should be a wake-up call that spurs Europe on to do more to be able to defend itself. By the looks of it, this is already working. Among those allies that have been spurred on by the comments are Germany, which has finally met the NATO alliance target to spend 2% of its GDP on defence, and this for the first time since the early 1990s. This was announced today by German Defence Minister Boris Pistorius in Brussels. I say it with a little smile, please don't take it completely seriously. The people of Lower Saxony, I am a Lower Saxon, we have a nice saying, a good horse doesn't jump higher than it has to. We are above 2%, that is the message. The government is allocating the equivalent of €71.8 billion for defence spending in the current year through regular and special budget outlays. However, the sum of its total defence spending is classified. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said on Wednesday that 18 countries are expected to meet the 2% target. NATO defence ministers will meet in Brussels tomorrow. A separate meeting of the Ukraine Defence Contact Group, hosted by the United States, took place today. Stoltenberg also said at a news conference in Brussels that overall military spending was set for another record year as Russia's fully fledged war against Ukraine is entering its third year. NATO's European states would invest a combined total of $380 billion on defence this year, he added. Back in 2023, 11 allies were expected to have met the 2% target according to prior NATO estimates. Poland, the United States, Greece, Estonia, Lithuania, Finland, Romania, Hungary, Latvia, the United Kingdom and Slovakia. Estonian Foreign Minister Margus Skana visited his Polish counterpart Radosław Sikorski in Warsaw today. The two ministers called on continued financial and military support for Ukraine as the United States discusses a Senate vote to support a bill envisaging $95 billion in aid for Ukraine and other allies. They added that their countries were doing their part and they expect the United States to do the same. Funding is critical for Kiev's ability to repeat Russian attacks and keep its battered economy going, as the war nears its third year. The United States bill is yet to be voted on in the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, where it has faced long opposition.
But I think that whatever Trump says, we have to understand that we have to put our part. And Estonia is putting this year 3.2% of GDP to NATO, and also Poland is putting 3% or even more with the extra fundings. So we invest to our defense to be ready. And I'm sure that the US will remain our strong ally in NATO as well.
United States President Joe Biden has been pushing for months for the package, which also includes security funding for Israel and Taiwan and humanitarian aid for the Palestinians. He has faced opposition from the Republican hardliners, particularly those most closely aligned with former President Donald Trump. Backers of the aid have been warily watching Trump's reaction. He has criticized the aid on social media, saying it should take the form of a loan, and also worried United States allies by suggesting he could encourage aggression against some NATO members.
NATO to nie firma ochroniarska.
NATO is not a security company. Article 5 was used for the first time in favor of the United States after the terrorist attacks of the 11th of September. Poland sent troops to Afghanistan, and we did not send an invoice to Washington for these troops and the lives of our soldiers.
Do Afganistanu.
Trump in recent days has drawn scorn from Biden and top Western officials after he suggested the United States might not protect NATO allies who aren't spending enough on defence from a potential Russian invasion. Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania issued diplomatic protests on Wednesday to Moscow after Russian police put leading Baltic politicians on a wanted list over the destruction of Soviet-era monuments. The three Baltic states were once ruled from Moscow but are now members of the European Union and NATO, and since the Russian invasion in Ukraine have emerged as staunch supporters of Ukraine and vocal critics of Russia. Estonia's Prime Minister Kaja Kallas and State Secretary Taimar Peterkop were both on the police wanted list, as were Lithuanian Culture Minister Simonas Kairis and some 60 current and former members of Latvia's parliament, according to Russia. Russian state agency TASS said on Tuesday that the Baltic officials were accused of destroying monuments to Soviet soldiers, acts that are punishable by a 5-year prison term under the Russian Criminal Code. Estonia, in a statement, said its diplomats had expressed indignation and demanded an explanation from the Kremlin. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs also notified the representative of Russia that these steps by the Russian state will not stop us from doing the right thing, and Estonia will not change its resolute support for Ukraine, the statement said. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan made a historic visit to Egypt today. It was the first visit to Egypt by a Turkish leader since 2021, and thus marks a pivotal shift towards rebuilding diplomatic relations between the two countries. These had been strained since Egypt's 2013 military coup and subsequent fallout with the Muslim Brotherhood, a key ally of Turkey. Both leaders signed documents restructuring the meetings of the High-Level Strategic Cooperation Council, signalling a commitment to fostering stronger bilateral ties. Discussions during Erdogan's visit primarily revolved around addressing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, with the Turkish president expressing readiness to cooperate with Egypt in rebuilding the region.
Gazze'de akan kanın durması için
We will continue the cooperation and solidarity with our Egyptian brothers for the bloodshed in the Gaza to stop. In the medium term, we are ready to work with Egypt for Gaza to recover and be rebuilt. In a joint press conference, Erdogan emphasized solidarity with Egypt in ending the bloodshed in Gaza and pledged to boost trade between the two countries to $15 billion. Defense cooperation was also discussed, and sources say that Turkey will supply Egypt with its Shahed drones. Finally, the two leaders also explored avenues for collaboration in energy, indicating a broader scope for partnership beyond immediate regional concerns. Erdogan's efforts to ease tensions with Egypt align with his broader diplomatic outreach to countries like the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia and Israel. The visit comes amidst continuing efforts to broker a Gaza truce agreement involving Egypt, Israel, Qatar and the United States. Erdogan surely pressed Sisi to allow more refugees across Egypt's borders, but Sisi reiterated Cairo's stance against allowing an influx of Gaza refugees to cross the border. Despite little in terms of concrete results, Erdogan's visit surely symbolises a significant step forward in Turkish-Egyptian relations, reflecting a mutual desire to address shared challenges and foster stability in the region as both countries navigate complex geopolitical dynamics across the world.